secret police member in India, and then a propagandist at BBC, at this mind control program of setting the precedence that the police can shoot somebody unarmed, restrained in the back, and then nobody gets in trouble. Setting the precedence just for unbelievable corruption.
Yeah, one of the things that they're always doing is pushing things as far as they can, and they're looking for a public reaction. If they don't get the public reaction against them that is a problem to them, then they'll go ahead with whatever they've announced. If they get a massive public reaction, then they'll just start denying it and saying it's ridiculous, and these people who are saying it are crazy, and they'll realize that they're going to have to do it in another way, maybe in 2 steps rather than 1 step.
Case in point. First, they said there was no Trans-Texas Corridor on CNN and Fox. They said Ron Paul was insane, that it didn't exist. On and on and on and on. Then they put up the signs, put up a lot of the toll roads, many of the 8,000 miles of toll roads, about 10% were put in place. Then they came out this week and said, okay, the Trans-Texas Corridor is dead. And then they announced a few days later, well, really, it's not dead. We're just breaking all the projects down into sub-pieces, and we're going to carry out every single bit of seizing your infrastructure to put international toll roads on it. So there's the example right there. Meanwhile, I'm on national radio debates, and the talk show host laughs at me and says none of this even exists.
Yeah, that's the way they work. And you know, in terms of Obama, we've got a mass mind control operation behind him that's far more, well, it's not sophisticated if you know how it works, but if you don't, it's far more sophisticated than I've come across. This is really a step up.
Well, you said it. They're using every science they've developed together, overlaid, working on all 8 cylinders like I've never seen. And normally they would play off the left-right paradigm with both parties for the illusion of that the Congress and the president really run things and aren't just front puppets. You know, for the real guys upstairs, as you've said so many times, for the first time ever, they're telling us we must be unified. And for me, that is the signal that they are really moving into a new phase.
Well, it was interesting. Years and years ago, when I was researching this back in the early 90s, I came across a lady called Kitty Little, who was an Oxford Don, and she told me that she attended a talk by someone at Oxford University in like the 1940s. And she got into this meeting, which was a closed meeting, because they thought she had certain political views and she didn't, and so she was an interloper and they didn't know. And this man stood up and he made the speech, and he said that there was an organization that had no name. He said, we don't give it a name because it's much more difficult to track it down if it doesn't have a name. He said it has a political wing, and it has what he called a biological wing. The head of the biological wing was Lord Richter Rothschild, and he said, was the head at that time of the political wing. And he said, as a result, there was going to come a point where he was going to become Prime Minister of Britain, and his name was Harold Wilson, and he became Prime Minister of Britain in the early 60s, and apart from 4 years until 1975. But what he said in that speech was that the infiltrators of this conspiracy were going to go into the left wing, the right wing of the Labour Party, which was perceived then as a left-wing party, and they were going to go into the left wing of the Conservative Party, which was perceived as a right-wing party, because he said people instinctively don't like extremists, so we're going to pose as moderates. He said, and what's going to happen is from control of both these parties, we're going to fuse them together to the point where they become one party under 2 names or 3 names with the Liberal Party. And what has happened in this country from the end of Margaret Thatcher onwards, particularly when Blair came in, is precisely what has happened. We have 3 parties in this country, 2 that have any chance of forming a government, Labour and Conservative, the Liberal Democrats as well. You can't hardly, except in rhetoric, get a cigarette paper between them on most of these things. And the same is happening now in America. We're reaching this point where the parties are fusing into the one party that they want them to become, and so we don't have political choice anymore.
Yes, whereas before they would have little fights with each other over the power structure, over who got to sit in the seats and levers of power to fund themselves and aggrandize themselves. Now there is no separation. And remember last year, David, in England, it came out that the House of Commons was being spied on by MI5. All their phones were being listened to, but that the main focus was on the few little parties that weren't controlled, and that they weren't worried about the three major parties because those were basically already run by the intelligence apparatus.
Yeah, well, you've got Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister. You've got David Cameron, the leader of the opposition. They use different words and they criticize each other. But you look at their basic policies and what they would do in power. It's precisely the same. And so it shows how far along the road we've now come, where even the pseudo fighting that went on before is now fusing into this one party state. And what they've done with Obama is turned him into a public demo-Republican, if you like, a Republic-Democrat, whatever you want to call it. They're putting him right in that center ground, in the public mind of bringing people together. But actually, he is a massive extremist who owes more to the fascist state of mind, especially the people behind him, than any socialist state of mind. Although if you go far enough left and far enough right, you meet the same situation anyway.
And then we get into colors, using colors to program. Have you noticed that he and his wife, the night they won, both wore red and black, and so did their children? Again, there's major messages in that.
Yeah, I mean, they understand the way that vibrational codes affect people, and colors are vibrational codes. They're different colors and different shades of color.
And that's the fascist color. And that's the fascist color: red, black, and white.
And it affects you in a certain way, and they speak to the subconscious mind. But I think one of the key things that we're going to see with Obama is the creation of a situation where if you're not for him, then you're somehow need to be marginalized.
And you're causing the economy to get worse. They're already saying that. If you do exactly what they say, and you don't question, and you go to the work brigades, and you hand your children over, and you spy on your neighbors, and you pay all these carbon taxes, things will be fixed. That's the solution. But if you stand in the way of the solution, you've got to be removed because you're the cause of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, when these demagogues and tyrannies come to power, I mean, Hitler's a classic example. Anyone that is against them is attacked, is marginalized, is abused, is libeled and slandered, and it's designed to stop people being that nail that stands out above the rest, as the Japanese say.
Stay there, David. David, stay there. We'll come back and continue with that. I want to talk to you, too, about a backfire, though. I'm seeing a backfire here. Because the system has lost so much credibility, people instinctively now, they see someone being attacked, think, they must be good. Okay, so what's happening there is the system loses more and more credibility. Stay with us. David Icke, compelling information. We'll be right back. David Icke is our guest for another 40 minutes. Going to open the phones up in the next hour at 1-800-259-9231. We're fighting the technological enslavement system. We're fighting the final revolution of the elite against humanity, trying to make themselves gods. I want to get into the genetic engineering, why they're destroying the environment in the name of saving it, what their final end game is if we don't defeat them, and more about us being empowered and taking action that you speak so eloquently to, David. But continue with the point you were making when we got interrupted by the break.
Well, I just feel that, Obama is going to be put up there in a situation where you're either for him and you're a good guy, or you're challenging him and you're just trying to destroy America. And the other thing that is going to be played, although he's talking all the time about racism and all this stuff, the race card's going to be played as well. People who attack him, they're going to be called racist, and it's just because he's a black president.
Oh, David, I know this has happened to you. On my website, Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com, we'll write an article with Rahm Emanuel saying compulsory service. We'll say we're against